We've got a perfect rendition of the early preservation livery, which is a perfect match to these bug box coaches, which appeared a couple of years ago. First impressions are really good, especially the printing on these, and you can see even down to the Ffestiniog railway crest, all of this is crisp and sharp, and certainly these coaches are proving very popular. A big hello to you, so great to see you, and I hope I find you well. I'm Jenny Kirk, welcome you up here to Weir Yard, and today we're back in the realm of OO9 with the all-new release of the Ffestiniog Railway Bowsiders from Peco. These are a UK-made model through and through, everything, including wheels, couplings, printing, even sticking them in the box is all done at their own factory at Beer in Devon, proving that you don't have to manufacture abroad to bring great quality models to the model market here in the UK. But does it match up to what you might expect? How does the price compare? And certainly, how well can Peco react to changes in the market? Well, they have very kindly sent over one of these Bowsider coaches for us to take a good close look at. Now, if you're wondering, Bowsider, that's a bit of an odd name. Well, they got this nickname because on the Ffestiniog Railway, when they were first introduced back in 1876, they have a particularly bowed side, and this is a feature of the way they're constructed and making the most of the very restricted loading gauge of the Ffestiniog Railway. They weren't the first bogie coaches to be introduced on the Ffestiniog Railway, but they're certainly some of the most distinctive, and they were built in two batches of two, and it's both of these that Peco are bringing to the market, but it's the slightly longer version that they have brought out first. These were built in 1879, building on some of the experience of the first pair of coaches, often known as the short Bowsiders, and they've been so successful that actually all four of these have survived right through into the preservation era to the present day and are still in operation on the Ffestiniog Railway. And how many other items of rolling stock could you say have been in near continuous use since the 1870s? It just shows how well made they were and how ideal they were for the role that they were intended to be used for. Peco are introducing these in a number of different liveries, which suit these coaches in pretty much any period that you would care to model, from their first introduction right through to the present day, where quite often they're painted up in heritage liveries. But the one that Peco have sent over is in the early preservation livery, which is a very fetching green and cream rendition. But just because these coaches were introduced during the early preservation era when money was incredibly tight doesn't mean that they skimped on that livery application. And actually the green and cream is certainly one which I think looks really quite fetching indeed. They were embellished with the Ffestiniog railway crest and a whole bunch of other detail printing, including the first and third logos on the doors, and of course the coach number up in the top right corner. In this instance, number 19, but number 20 is also available, and you can choose from some of those different liveries that they've worn over time. And forthcoming from Peco are the shorter versions, again in a whole host of different liveries. And what could be more perfect to pull these than the Peco Small and Large England models? And Peco are releasing another run of these, including the all-new Large Englands in a slew of different liveries, and they very kindly sent us over some high-res livery renders so we can see just what to expect from those. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, so let's turn back to those Bowsider coaches and see whether a model that is made entirely in the UK can compete with the other ready-to-run offerings from other manufacturers. Does it live up to your expectations in terms of detail, robustness, design, and how well it runs on your layout? Well, thanks to the generosity of Peco sending over a review sample, we're going to take a good close look, so come with me in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabrique.co.uk. Additional support comes from...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model OO gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest loco.
In the late 1990s, we saw a lot of production start to move overseas to China, and this was driven by the much cheaper cost of manufacture and the fact that the Chinese could produce models to a far higher standard than we'd been used to in the UK. So we had the double whammy of cheaper models with much greater levels of intricacy and detail. Fast forward on over 20 years, and the cost of manufacturing in China has steadily risen to the point where price is the perennial talking point amongst any modelers. Many of the manufacturers are now locked into making models in China, and there's a lot of difficulties, including supply chains being stretched and factory slots not being readily available, so much so that quite often you can be waiting years for new models to finally make it through to the shops. Peco has avoided all of this by keeping its manufacturing base firmly in the UK. And now that really has come to the fore, that they can react to demands in the market. And it'd be really interesting to take a look now and see just how good those models are and whether they match up to expectations in the market. Certainly my feeling is that companies like Peco that have been able to keep production in the UK, or at the very least onshore them back in, are certainly in a stronger position going forward with a greater degree of security over their supply chain. But can they make the models that the modeler demands? Well, let's take a good close look at this all-new Bowsider from Peco. Over the years, it's quite notable that different manufacturers do seem to have gone down different routes when it comes to specialising on their thing, or the rolling stock and locomotives that they tend to do. And in the case of Peco, there's two different scales and gauges which they've gone for. N gauge has been very much a perennial classic for the Peco range, but also more recently OO9. Now, we've reviewed quite a few of the different items that have been appearing in this scale over the years, and one such thing has been the first ever locomotive offering from Peco Ready to Run, which was with partnership Kato of Japan, and these are the small Englands. Now, Peco have announced that they're also going to be doing the larger Englands, and there is another production run of these coming out, which includes Palmerston and Little Wonder as well, which is certainly something which I'm very much looking forward to. And Peco have shared with us the extremely high-res versions of the livery renders, and we're very grateful to them for sharing those with the channel and allowing us to use them. When it comes to coaching stock, Peco have very much majored on some of the variety of different items that the Ffestiniog railway has, and they very kindly sent over for review when they first came out the bug box coaches, available in 3 different varieties. There's very fetching, and actually my favourite of the set, the zoo car, which is sort of this open-sided observation car, but also the first class and the third class ones as well. And a lot of these coaches are actually unique in that they're still running on the Ffestiniog railway, so you can still go and actually ride in these today. And Peco have been putting them out in a number of different liveries, including this early preservation livery that you see on these, and one of the other really eye-catching liveries is this Victorian plum and cream version as well, which I do actually really like. Now, something that's very unique about Peco, and in fact I can think of only one other major manufacturer who does this is that they manufacture in the UK, and that does include all of these items of rolling stock. And actually, it's only the locomotives which are handled outside of Peco's facility at Beer near Seaton, and that is something which has to be commended. It certainly does mean that Peco are able to react to the changing face of manufacturing needs for the hobby, and it does put them in a really strong position. The latest release from Peco that they have very kindly sent over are these, again from the Ffestiniog Railway stable. These are the Bowsider coaches, so named for the distinctive body shape that they carry, where they kind of bow out above the sole bar level. Now, these have been announced and delivered in the long form for coaches number 19 and 20, with forthcoming in the shorter versions, which is number 17 and 18. Now, the history behind these, 17 and 18 were delivered in 1876, with 19 and 20 turning up just a few years later, and the best way to be able to tell these apart is the spacings around the first class doors. Now, on the earlier ones, they only have two wider panels either side of the single first class door, and on the slightly longer 19 and 20, you can see that we've got the two different first class compartments, and we've got three of these wider window sets down the side, making the coach ever so slightly longer. The model itself comes in the Peco heavy-duty plastic case, which does mean that these can be stored very safely when not in use or when being transported. We've got a catalogue number on this of GR621A, Ffestiniog Railway long Bowsider coach, early preservation livery number 19. Getting these out of the box is fairly simple, and actually the box does go a long way to help prevent any kind of damage to the coach. I'm just going to slide that out, and then the whole coach just comes away from the tray that it sits in the box. We've got a perfect rendition of the early preservation livery, which is a perfect match to these bug box coaches which appeared in the range a couple of years ago. As bogie coaches, they still are quite small, and comparing the bug box to these, you can see that actually there's at most 2.5 times the length of a bug box to each of these coaches, and this was necessitated by the loading gauge and curvature of the Ffestiniog Railway, which can be quite challenging at times. The printing on these is pretty superb, and you can see even down to the Ffestiniog Railway crest, all of this is really crisp and sharp. And first impressions are really good, especially when you consider that this is being made entirely within the UK. The 3 and the 1 for the third and the first class compartments has a number of different passes of the printing process to give us various different shades and drop shadowing, and really is quite nice and crisp. As said before, the Ffestiniog Railway crest is nicely done right in the centre of the coach, and then we've got the green, the cream, and the wooden window frames as well are also picked out with one of 2 different colours to match the prototype. All of this really is pretty sharp and nicely done. The coach itself does involve a lot of moulded on detail, and this is one way that Peco are keeping the costs down and making these able to be manufactured in the UK to a competitive price point. On the ends of the coach you can see here the moulded on detail, but actually this does work reasonably well. These coaches also featured these verandas too, which are one of the unique features of the Ffestiniog Railway, and we saw that on some of the brake vans, which are also a recent release to the Peco wagon stable. Looking to the underside, the coach sits on these bogies, and these feature metal tired wheels for super smooth running, and that is an upgrade from the original release of the Bug Box, which had all plastic wheels, and certainly at the time this was something that Peco said that they were looking to upgrade, and they have delivered, not just for these coaches but also the later releases of the Bug Boxes too also feature these metal tired wheels. The wheels themselves are moulded into the metal casing, and that means that just like the point work that Peco do, it's very, very strong and is almost certainly not going to come away from the wheel centre. The couplings are attached in N-gauge stroke OO9 style coupling pockets on the end of a long arm that sticks out one end of the bogie. As per the prototype, these bogies do sit quite nicely sort of underneath the sole bar. On the real coaches, these are fitted with India rubber blocks which form part of the springing for the coaches, and does mean that these sit just ever so slightly higher on the track than some of the earlier coaches. Underframe detail is quite slight, just like on the prototype. There's not much room under here, but we do have these truss rods which run the full length of the coach itself, and you can see that the seating part of the coach is a one-piece injection moulded part with the seating included there as part of the base, and this is another way that Peco have been able to keep the costs down. The roof is finished in this textured grey plastic. It appears to be the actual colour of the plastic itself as far as I can tell, but it's really nicely done, and the texture does give it this slightly more matte finish, which I do really like. Looking to the ends on the verandas, these are again moulded in plastic. They are not too chunky, and the plastic does mean that they are pretty resilient to any knocks and poking, with the vacuum standard all fitted as part of the same moulding. Couplings out of the box are these hook and loop style, which is standard across the OO9 range, but it's really easy to just pull these out and change them for any other type of standard coupling. I personally go for the West Hill Wagon Works magnetic couplings, but you can also use the Tram Fabrique chopper style couplings, or indeed even N-gauge couplings will fit back into this coupling pocket, making them very versatile indeed. If you want to add passengers to this coach, it's really quite easy to do. The roof just lifts straight off, and you can see is a simple clip-on piece. Inside we've got some degree of access down into the centre, and also a bar that gives some degree of strength and rigidity to the sides of the coach. The green itself looks to be the base colour of the plastic that these have been moulded out of, but I must say that Peco have not fallen into any of the pitfalls that we've seen with other manufacturers using the base colour as part of the livery application, and certainly from the outside it's very difficult to be able to identify that that green is just the base plastic colour. Glazing is fitted as a bar down the entirety of the inside. It's quite thin and well secured in place, and there's plenty of room in here if you want to add lighting to any of the compartments, and it's more than possible to also glue in seated passengers if you want to load up your coach. The ends are a separate piece as well, which are clipped into place, and you really shouldn't need to have to remove them at any point. Putting the roof back on is really quite simple. Locate, push, and it's on. The rest of the decoration on the coach also includes the coach number on the end there. This is number 19, and number 20 is also available. A number of different liveries are either already released or planned, and certainly these coaches are proving very popular. They have an RRP of just a shade under £60, but looking around I've been able to find them for a discounted price, and this does put them into a favourable price bracket for anybody modelling the narrow gauge scene. On the track the coach runs really quite well. Those metal tired wheels do make sure that it runs very, very smooth, and it did take in the point work on my OO9 railway slightly more smoother than the four-wheel bug box coaches, which is quite pleasant to see. The rolling resistance isn't too great, and certainly the small England locomotive was able to take a small train in its stride with no great difficulty whatsoever. So we turn now to the scores. First up is build quality, and the coach is reasonably well put together. There's not a huge amount of pieces, but I'm particularly pleased to see that items such as the window glazing are really nicely fixed in place, and we do get a really great effect from that quite thin glazing with no risk of it being pushed back in. There is a lot of innovative ideas to be able to keep the production costs down, and certainly it does work quite well despite the simplicity of the design. But there were just a few areas where I noticed some panel gaps appearing on the ends of the coaches, which you can just see there's a little bit of spring there, and I noted that at all four corners. Now this could be fixed with an application of glue, but it does feel that the clip-in process of assembly just isn't quite holding that true. Other than that, the bogies are pretty robust, and everything else did seem to stay put where it needs to be. I like the removable roof that just clips in place, and that does seem to be pretty well in place when back on the coach with no risk of it just popping off willy-nilly. So all in all, I'm going to give this a 9.1. On running quality, the coach did perform reasonably well. It's a good deal longer than any of the other rolling stock that I use on Mynydde Tatus, and that did mean that it was really, really tight going through the tunnel, but that's more a statement of the very restricted loading gauge that I've built into the layout than anything else, and certainly these are faithful to the original design on the Ffestiniog railway from 1879. Through the point work, this was a much smoother runner than the bug box coaches, and you would expect that with a bogied coach such as this. And all in all, I was reasonably pleased with the running of this coach, and I'm going to give it a 9.8. Next up is DCC fitting and innovation, and there's a big plus point here in that these are entirely made in the UK, and that's everything including wheels, couplings, the printing, assembly, even the box that it sits in, and Peco have to be commended for doing an awful lot to bring the hobby's production to the UK in this way, and this does mean that Peco is able to react to demand. If a particular livery is wanted, then Peco can just put it into production, and we have seen a wide variety of liveries released of these, and certainly Peco has been able to a degree to keep up with a demand for items when they've been released in the past, because it controls its own production facility down in Beer in Devon, and that really is a great plus point. The quality of the printing and the assembly does show that UK manufacture, at least for items such as coaching stock and wagons, is very, very viable, and Peco really do have to be applauded for making that happen. In other areas though, there is a little bit of simplicity that has creeped in, which does come with a few little gripes. The fit on the end pieces of this coach do leave a little bit of a springy panel gap, and certainly when we looked to the inside of the coach, the seating arrangement does seem to be very basic, although it's something that very quickly could be turned around with a spot of paint and some seated passengers. The end veranda rails are just a little bit on the thick side. This is necessitated by the clever construction with plastic injection moulding, but I'm going to give this an 8.7. It's a really great offering and certainly shows just what can be done with UK-based manufacturer, and definitely Peco have not been slow to add in improvements on their range as they've gone forward, including upgrading the wheels, and certainly these do get better and better with each new item that Peco releases. On accuracy and quality of finish, this is an area where it really does shine. Peco show the way ahead, with very clever use of the actual moulded plastic to represent some of the colours, without any detraction to the livery itself. The standard of the printing over the top for the embellishments and the other livery parts really is well done, and I particularly like the roof, with its slightly textured finish really toning down what could have otherwise been quite a shiny finish, and that is a really great touch. Clearly Peco have gone to a lot of effort to think about the manufacturing process and what can be done to both keep costs down, keep assembly time down and less labour intensive, but not compromise the finish of the coach. All in all, they've done a great job with this, and I'm going to give it a 9.0. This particular livery is quite ornate, and Peco also have to be commended in offering these in every single livery that they have ever run in, and that means there's some great variety. My personal favourites for the liveries on the Ffestiniog Railway are the Victorian Plum and Cream, but notwithstanding that, I have to say these really do look fine in their early preservation guise and are a great companion to the bug boxes which have already been released in this livery. On value for money, we've got an RRP of around £60, just slightly under, for these coaches, although looking around I can find these discounted somewhat at a number of different retailers, and we've got a link in the description box to take you to one of those to help you out. Certainly these are coaches which are not going to hang around long. They will prove really popular, and it really does make me chuckle a little bit that for many, many years we would see adverts in the Railway Modeller from retailers that would list a small amount of track and maybe a couple of kit items for OO9, and then in big letters underneath put "This is all the OO9 we have," as if they were sick and tired of telling customers, no, we don't have any other items. What Peco proved in OO9 is that this scale and gauge combination really is popular. It's a really great compromise for those who maybe think that N gauge is just a little bit too small for their eyesight and they want all the benefits of OO modelling, but also trains that can get through some really quite tight curves and into some really quite inaccessible places. They're still a little bit on the expensive side for what you get, but you are paying for a premium product from a UK-based manufacturer, and that is definitely worth something. So for value for money, I'm going to give this an 8.9. That gives us a final score of 45.5 for these Bowsider coaches from Peco, and I'm really looking forward to the shorter variant, which is shown as available to pre-order when I look up on the websites, and these are sure to be great additions to any narrow gauge based layout. Well, I hope you really enjoyed today's video and found it informative, and I'd love to hear from you down in the comments section down below. Just what do you think about these new models coming through from Peco? Do they feature in your locomotive and rolling stock fleet? And certainly if you've got your very own OO9 build on the go, I'd love to hear from you. I'd also like to hear from you with your thoughts on bringing manufacturing back to the UK. Is this something that you very much welcome, or do you think it comes with its own set of compromises? Again, do leave a comment down below. We've also got a link in the description box to take you to where you can pick up any of the models that you've seen in today's video, and don't forget as well to check out the full merch store that we've got a link to as well. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying you take great care of yourself. Happy modelling, bye for now. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabrique.co.uk. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model OO gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest logo.
I'd like to thank everybody over on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to our Patreon heroes. Without you guys over on Patreon, we really wouldn't be able to keep making the video content that you see on this channel. And don't forget that you can also head on over to patreon.com/JenniferKirk and check out the different tiers of rewards. Thank you so much. You are absolute legends.